Want to know what your dog is thinking?
Have a challenging dog behavior you need help with?
The Dish on Dogs is your source for all your canine questions.
Improve your relationship with your dog and deepen your understanding of your furry friend. Right here on the Dish on Dogs. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Dish on Dogs. This is our premiere episode, and I can't be more excited. I'm Mike Gould, affectionately known as the Mayor of Hounds, USA, home to the happiest dogs on earth. With me today is the very lovely, intelligent, beautiful. She's actually my former co-host on radio.
I'm back.
She
Isn't
quit.
everyone
And
happy?
this is, of course, the president of Houndstown, USA, the human brain of the operation, Jackie Bondanza. Welcome, dear. How are
Thanks. Pretty good.
you-
Hope everyone's doing well out there in podcast land, you know?
We don't really care. Let's be real. Jackie. So, are you mildly excited about this? Because I am mildly excited about this.
Oh, mildly. Well, I'm actually really excited about
Really?
this. We've
Okay,
been
good.
working on moving you over from our local radio program, being a host of
Celestial, what do you call that? Like, it's like the old school radio.
that. Yeah, it's like ESP signals or whatever they call it.
Right,
Basically,
all
like what
All
I
right.
consider radio. But anyway, this is going to give us, I think, a bigger and better platform to reach all of our customers and our franchisees and people interested in animal behavior, the dog brain, Houndstown, learning more about how to have a better relationship with their dogs. So that's kind of that was the purpose of us moving this over to kind of this new podcast platform.
So as we go, you'll explain to me and my very old friends what podcast is all about. So right now, one of my most faithful listeners is Joan and Tom Sullivan down in Florida, Beverly Hills, not California. So they're down there. And she
The
is
lesser
like,
known
Joan
Beverly
is
Hills.
like you. She's the brain of the Sullivan family. You're the brain of our little episode here. So with that said, we're talking about podcasts. We're talking about the Dish on Dogs. I know I wanted to name the show Humans Suck, but you said that may not be appropriate.
Yeah, no, that is not appropriate.
And that's not really true.
And that's not
most,
really
how can I say
true.
most humans? I think from the dog's perspective, not from mine. I love everyone, obviously. You know that. So the Dish on Dogs, I think you created this title.
Yes.
So it's very clever. So let's just describe that. The dish, like dog dish on dogs. So we're going to be dishing out information.
Right. Yes. So I guess the origin of the name is we wanted to host an informative show about dogs and animal behavior. And, at Houndstown, which is a fully interactive pet care facility, we have 11 locations across the country and growing. Right. We see so much disorder and between dogs and the relationship they have with their owners and humans. Right. And our main goal at Houndstown is to make sure that dogs are having a great time, that they're experiencing what they would experience in a natural pack.
A dog experience.
Right. So Houndstown is a place for dogs to be dogs. So the show is an extension of that. And we wanted a platform to share information about dogs.
Right.
So yes, we're dishing on dogs because we kind of have the know. We have 20 years of, you basically have 20 plus years of knowledge.
40, but who's counting?
Double that, right.
So,
but since Houndstown has been around for the past 20 plus years.
And since then, we've taken care of 1.5 million dogs.
Yes.
So one of the things that's important to me, this is not just about dogs, sit, what you feed them, have them roll over, nothing like that. We're going to be really primarily talking about the human brain versus the animal brain, and how dogs sometimes are brought into our world. There's the big word anthropomorphism, which is toxic to dogs. Anthropomorphism, for those people out there listening, the Yins in Pittsburgh, y'all in Georgia, or wherever the hell you are. For those of you who don't know what anthropomorphism is ascribing human traits to animals. And dogs are the number one victim, because we've seen dogs on television and we kind of look at them as human. And they really, in many, many cases, it's actually, on an extreme level, it's abusive to dogs, but on a fundamental level, you can make your dogs much more balanced and happy if you listen to this show. But what I'd like to point out for those listening, that we're going to be talking about, issues, psychology, sociology, biology, all of these things, and human sexuality, For you
We are?
oh yes.
I'm not sure that's.
Oh
really
yeah,
an
human
approved
sexuality.
topic
So
of
for
this
you
show.
perverts, for you perverts sitting in traffic right now, whatever time you're listening to this, we're going to be talking about human sexuality as it relates to animals, because we're all primal beings. This is the whole point. We're going to go back in time to the very beginning when the wolf, the gray wolf, then wild dogs, then we domesticated dogs. We'll talk a little bit of my background, your background, and why the goal of the show is to give you real good advice to understand the animal brain. So that obviously...
With the ultimate goal of creating a better relationship with your dog and understanding dogs better, so that we can give them a better life collectively, whether that's in your home, in your personal relationship with your dog, whether it's, that incorporates bringing your dog to one of our Houndstown locations. So
Right.
Our goal is to make your life with your dog better, and to improve the quality of your dog's life by talking about all of these aspects that affect a dog's life and our relationship with them.
Right. So my goal was always what I like to used to say was we make pet ownership possible, dog ownership possible. Because now, more than ever, I started this 21 years ago when there was no doggy daycares. The concept was...
Right. Well, let's start with why Houndstown started. And talk a little bit about, just quickly, your background, and then how Houndstown became a company.
Okay. So my background is, as you know, in law enforcement, commercial canine training. I was one of the founding members in 1982 of the New York City Police Canine Unit, which is, that's a long time ago. That's old.
I think you're old.
It makes me old. And during that period, from that point forward, I've been working with dogs, what I call commercially, meaning I've trained scent dogs to find everything from drugs to cadavers. So we use the dog's nose. And then around when 9/11 happened, even the dogs actually at Ground Zero, they needed an outlet because they were under a lot of stress from working too hard.
Right, but you had a private scent detection dog company
I did.
with a partner of yours, right? And
Yes.
you brought the dogs down to Ground Zero to help participate in the rescue efforts, recovering bodies, essentially.
Well, these dogs were explosive detection dogs. So
Okay.
after 9/11, they wanted to make sure to clear the building. So there was, if you remember correctly, you probably don't. You were probably very young at the time. But
I was partying in college.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yes, I wasn't young,
Right,
but
so
I
you were
don't remember for
intoxicated.
other reasons.
You were intoxicated. But the point of the matter is most human beings at that time were very disjointed because nobody knew if the world was literally coming. Was it World
Right.
War III and so forth?
Yes.
So it was not a planned thing. So we happened to have, my partner and I, as you quite correctly said, we had explosive detection dogs. They weren't really available. If you think of it, pre-9/11, who has private explosive detection dogs? You wouldn't call up and say, search my garage for a bomb.
You're saying in the private sector, though.
In the private
Police
sector.
departments did have
Absolutely,
these units
right.
to
Yeah.
protect the community at large.
Right.
But you're really talking about the use of scent detection dogs and explosive detection dogs
that's right.
in a private capacity.
Right, a private capacity, right.
So that changed with 9/11. So you brought the dogs down to 9/11.
Yes.
And I know I've heard you talk about in the past how the dogs searched for explosives. And so now and then you also talked about how they tired out and
Right.
and fold that into how and why Houndstown started around 9/11.
All right, that's a good question. So, and in fact, it kind of segues into what we're talking about. So when these cadaver dogs were searching the pile for human remains, they were actually overworked. But I remember newspaper reporting that the dogs were depressed because of all the bodies they were finding. And that was like front page on the Post at the time. Right. But it was really a misinterpretation. And that would be the first tidbit of anthropomorphism. Right. Because the dogs weren't searching for dead bodies. They were searching for an odor that they got rewarded for. So they were hunting for their ball or their whatever.
And that's very tiring for a dog.
Exactly.
So then the dog got physically tired, and then the human interpreted that as
depression.
They're depressed because they're finding dead bodies.
Exactly. So that is the first acknowledgement. People will argue about that. We have a brain here, the human brain, and opposed to the mammalian brain.
Right.
So so that was the genesis of it. So the dogs were being tired. The workers were working 20 hours a day. So I rented a building in Port Jefferson, New York, a factory, just an empty factory, so dogs could have a natural outlet. Dogs have to be dogs. just like children have to be children. They can't work endlessly. They're always, for adults, we all need an outlet of human activity. Dogs need an outlet for dog activity because they're dogs.
So this experience at Ground Zero with the dogs and seeing that they had kind of no outlet led you to found a business that was essentially for dogs. It was that outlet for
dogs to be, a natural pack environment. So obviously there's dog walkers, there's kennels, there's all kinds of things. But a true outlet is for dogs to interact like dogs. And that's why I talked about human sexuality. Dogs have sex drives. They have certain things, how they interact with other dogs. We as humans, our anthropomorphic brain sometimes stymies that and don't allow it, right? So if your dog is doing something, sniffing somebody's crotch, excuse my language. I don't think that's not bad language, is it, producer? No. So if what do you do if your dog sniffs your company comes over and your dog sticks his nose in their crotch? What do? We yell at them, or we tell them it's impolite. If they fart, whatever we do. To what we would do with a human, we project that onto a dog.
It on the dog.
Project it.
So bottom line, when dogs come to Houndstown, they can fart and hump each
fart,
other.
they can
do
sniff each other's. I call it. I call it a genital sniff. A genital sniff.
That's trademarked, folks.
Well, but and we're adults here, hopefully listening here. So let's be real about this. So a genital sniff is exactly that. So when a dog sniffs another dog's genitals, they know all about them. They know the age of the dog, the health of the dog.
And you've called that like the equivalent of the human handshake, right? So it's like the saying hello to,
right.
to dog to dog.
As you know, we do thousands and thousands of what we call temperament evaluations. And when dogs come in, we introduce them to another dog. And in a perfect world, the first thing they start to do is a circular genital sniff, where they kind of...
and that's how they size each other up and get an understanding of one another.
Exactly. And not only that, there's a big trust value, as you probably know, allowing somebody to sniff your genitals. But my point is, but there's a trust element to it. But that's why we got to keep it real. So for one dog to allow another dog to sniff this sensitive part of their body and accept that, tolerate that, it is really a trust issue. So that's how we determine now if another dog doesn't like that and they snap, and that's how dogs establish dominance in many ways. So yeah, that is what I would describe as the handshake, the dog handshake, sniffing. If you're at a dog park or wherever you are, you'll see the dogs first go to a dog's butt and start sniffing around. And
so all of these philosophies and this understanding about dogs and what they actually need and being able to read dogs from a dog's perspective has informed your decision to create a place for dogs to be dogs, which is Houndstown. And we're growing super rapidly.
Thanks to you.
Well, and I think thanks to this foundation that really no other pet care company or concept, franchise system, kennel, dog walker has. I think we, because of your background and your deep understanding of animals, have a very unique set of skills and an abundance of knowledge about what a dog actually needs. And I think that's why that informs every level of our operations at all of our Houndstown locations. And that's what makes us really different.
Oh, yeah. Right. So our competitors, quite frankly, and again, I never talk about what our competitors do wrong, but I tell people what we do right. So we don't read story time. There's no story time. We don't read books to dogs. We know what dogs need. Their basic fundamental needs are. And then really this whole show, hopefully, every episode, we're going to build on this very simple fact that there's a mammalian brain, a human brain, I should say an executive brain, the neocortex, and then there's the mammalian brain. We all have it, so we share the same brains, but our human brain has evolved so much. Most people don't even remotely understand dogs. So if you want to know what aggravates me to some degree is all of our customers, everybody loves dogs. They've never professed to love dogs more now than ever any time in our history.
Right.
They get the best food. They go to the vet. They get the best of everything, the best beds. But they rarely, if ever, take the time to really understand the dog brain and what it's thinking. And
I think because as humans, we make the automatic assumption, because we're kind of the dominant species in this world, right?
Right, because we have thumbs.
That we are the smartest, and we project what we think the dog is thinking, needs, wants onto the dog, because our brain can't really, we've never really been forced to think a different way about dogs.
Right. And that's true. And additionally, though, we can't understand. So dogs, using their nose, they almost have X-ray vision. So if we don't know how if a dog can sniff 500 pounds greater than ours, they can hear high-pitched sounds that are oblivious to you. It would be like you not knowing how a deaf child or a blind person.
We can't relate. So the purpose of this show and the purpose of, I think, Houndstown in general is to bridge that gap. Bridge that knowledge gap between humans and dogs, so we can get a better understanding of the dog's perspective on life and our world, and what their needs are.
Right. And the funny thing is, in my mind, in my world, in the behavioral work we do, it's so simple, it's difficult for humans to do. It's this dog behavior is as simple as learning how to ride a bicycle. You don't need to read a manual. There's no instruction manual on riding a bike. You just learn to do it. At some point, you learn to do it. So dog behavior is so simple. It's just that you just have to take a breath, step back, and observe your dog. In law enforcement, one of the biggest challenges in searching for whatever we're searching for, if we were searching for criminals, bombs, whatever odor that the dog was trained to do, the biggest thing that gets beaten into our human brain is to trust your dog, because it's so difficult not to. So if your dog is dragging you somewhere where you don't think a human being could be, many times we would pull the dog off of that odor. But if you trust your dog, and that was a concept that was, if you talk about coaching, so what I talk about here on some level, your dog is always telling you something, right? 3 o'clock in the morning when your dog's snoring, he's telling you that he's safe and secure. On the other end, when the doorbell rings and he gets out of balance and gets so aroused that he wants to bark, bite, jump, whatever they want to do, so they're telling you they're excited. And then they're always in some kind of place. We try to balance energy and be good leaders. And we teach people to be good leaders most frequently by doing nothing. And that's what we're going to talk about on these episodes. How to balance your dog's energy. And don't project all your toxic shit onto a dog.
Right.
So now,
and I think that because we tend to do that as humans and dog owners, that leads into all of these issues that we all have with our dogs: leash aggression, pulling, jumping, barking, separation anxiety. So we're going to be talking about all of these things as the episodes unfold, and hopefully sharing and understanding about how you can take away practical tips to improving those behaviors and therefore making your relationship with your dog better.
Right. And really dumbing this down, because the mammalian brain is very simple. Right. It wants safety, security. It has its basic needs like we do. The human brain is full of emotion, conflict, contradiction.
Right.
So we'll talk about emotions. What dogs feel and how to some degree. And a lot of times, like I like to say, these are not my concepts. These are Mother Nature's concepts. So you don't have to listen to me. Of course, nobody does. You can read all the books in the world you want about dogs and all of this. It really is so simple that you don't have to. You can just look at your dog, and their dog will tell you exactly what you need. If you want to torment your dog and dress it up like a bumblebee, then do that. If you want to project all types of psychological disorders onto a dog that really is not capable. And by the way, when I say that with all due respect, because there's obviously all levels of emotional support dogs, therapy dogs, police dogs. So they have a value in our society. Right. But I used to train them. I trained all those things. Then I realized, what am I doing to the dog? I'm projecting so much human toxicity into a dog that just wants, it's like a 2-year-old child. It can't be more than that. It can never be more complicated than that. So yeah, they serve some purpose in life and they make people feel happy. All my dogs make me feel happy. But I don't have to take them and project every nuance of my human phobias. I'm afraid of flying, so I'm going to cram a dog under the seat of my Southwest, what I call it Noah's Ark. Does that make sense to you?
It does,
Jackie?
and we'll talk about that in a different episode. Okay. We're getting a little off topic.
Right.
This is a little bit of a diatribe now, but I get it, and I think all of these concerns come from a frustration of seeing you have a better understanding of what dogs actually need, how they see the world, how they view us. No one ever, I think, really takes that into consideration. How does the dog view us?
Right.
We always focus on how do we view the dog, because that's the only perspective we have.
Right.
But, we're here to talk about, to speak on behalf of the dog. And of course, this is our opinion based on your extensive experience, based on 20 years and 1.5 million visitors that we've had through our Houndstown doors in the past 20 years.
Right.
So that's really where our perspective is coming from.
Right. And with that said, my opinion is based on some facts. And the facts are dogs don't have opposing thumbs, they don't stand erect, and they don't have a human brain. So those are factual. How we all can interpret that.
Right. But this is our interpretation of those facts, essentially.
Right.
And our observations of, taking care of millions of dogs over the past 20 years.
Right. But I think to put it in perspective, if people out there listening, if anyone's listening, if you removed your thumbs and crawled on and you only have a head and a mouth, that's really the only thing a dog has. A head, a mouth, of course it's got its paws. So think about that, crawling around. For those of you who drink heavily, you probably already know this experience. But think about being on the floor, 12 to 18 inches off the ground, without thumbs. That you said we are the king of the jungle, so to speak, because we have a brain and thumbs, and we stand erect. Dogs are never... When during these seminars, I show the picture of a gray wolf and an Alaskan Malamute, and you see they're almost...
and there's not much difference.
They look like there's nothing different.
Right.
So they don't look more like humans 200,000 years ago. They look exactly like a gray wolf.
So we, as the human species, has evolved so much over the past 200 or 300 years, but...
Thousands, yeah.
But, just, I think, more progressively over the past... Arguably over the past 200 or 300 years, but dogs have not. So we're dealing with a species that's a lot more basic,
it's primal
than we are.
So even though we domesticated it, as again I said, all dogs are really the same. They haven't done anything. They haven't evolved physically or intellectually. So that's the thing that we have to stay into. So we're so goddamn smart that it interferes with us. It interferes with us just understanding. You pet a dog, its tail wags, he's happy. He smells pee, he smells urine, feces. It doesn't mean...
And I think that humans in general, or at least this is true for me, are attracted to dogs because they are primal, because they represent nature and something simple and not complicated. Right. And I think that we need to kind of get back to having an fundamental understanding of that on an everyday basis. Right. In order to make our relationships with our dogs less complicated and less toxic for both us and the dog.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. But what it is to that point, they do have emotion. They're very emotional animals, but not to the degree we are. So, and they're very loyal. So if a dog looks at you and they feel safe and secure, and you're going to be the source of their food, it's going to now look like human love, like a very intense human love. And it actually is more loyal than human love, as we've discussed many times. That love in human brain is ambiguous. You could love somebody today, but hate them tomorrow. A dog, if he looks at you and accepts you as the person, his leader, that is going to care for them. So we want, a cat's not going to do that. A horse is not going to do that. A tropical...
So that's why we are attracted to dogs.
That's why we are attracted.
Right. And in a way, it's fairly self-serving because we need the recognition and the love back from the animals, which is fine. Except I think sometimes we don't give the dog what they need in return.
Right. And I could go talk about the human psychology of it. Let's put it this way. A dog is the one creature in your life. There are hostages. You have complete control. They can't leave you for another dog. They can't. So you have complete control. So from my perspective, and this is not to say everybody, but some people, again, that they have complete 100% control of the dog, when it eats, what it wears, and we don't have that with humans, right? You can't control other humans, nor do we want to.
I would argue that people do that with their children all of the time.
Oh God, yes, it's horrible. It's what people do.
But at least as children go up, they have the opportunity.
Well, they could run away from home, which they normally do around 16. Where's my son up there? So once they reach a certain age and they get out of this toxic bubble, absolutely, and I love that. And I really like to talk about a segment on that particular thing, that dogs are our hostages. They have no choice. We think we're great. I think I'm a great parent. I think I'm a great everything. We look in the mirror. Very few people, by the way, dogs don't have self-awareness, so they can't look in the mirror. But how many people look in the mirror and say, I suck? I suck as a human. I suck as a husband. I suck as a police lieutenant. Yeah. Nobody does. I think I'm the greatest person that ever lived.
Right.
I think I look like Brad Pitt. And one of the next day, yeah. Kind of, no?
Check your mirror.
Right, check my mirror. So self-awareness. And so the two things we're going to take off on or discuss, two things that I like to talk about is the fact that dogs don't have self-awareness or free will. So Jackie, right now, or I could just pack this whole thing up and walk out of here and go, I could do whatever I want. Dogs can never do that. They do. Domestic dogs, wild dogs, yeah, of course, they run and hide and they do whatever they want. Our pets at home can't. They rely on you for 100% of everything. And sometimes, not always, I kid around saying people suck. Yeah. But they rely on us 100%, like a 2-year-old child. A 2-year-old child has no free will, and they have no self-awareness, frankly. They can't look in a mirror and understand they want to be somebody else. So a poodle can't look in the mirror and say, I want to be a pit bull someday. So dogs are eternal infants. That is one of the founding principles of a lot we're going to talk about.
Okay, so let's move into talking. So every episode we're going to have a question of the day that relates to the topic we're talking about. And we polled our customers, our franchisees, to ask them what challenges they have with their dogs and their animals on a daily basis that they want advice on how to fix. So today's question is from one of our customers here at Hounds Ronkonkoma, our corporate location. And it's from a friend of hers who currently uses a dog walker, but our customer is trying to convince her to bring her dog to Houndstown because her dog has such a great experience here. So the question from the friend is, what does my dog get at Houndstown that he wouldn't get with a dog walker? You know, I'm paying a little bit less for a dog walker.
Right.
What's the value in Houndstown?
Right. So I would... It's as obviously as night and day to me, obviously. So again, what value do children have playing in a schoolyard or an adult taking them for a walk around the block? So again, going back to what we talked about before, walking a dog tethered, actually dog walking, and we'll talk about that later, is not always as fun as we think it is for a dog. Right. We talk about leash aggression, and it's very controlled. The dog is literally tethered to someone. So a dog walker, what happens at doggy daycare here at Houndstown, it's like dogs running marathons because they're always active, interacting, and they're self-controlled, meaning they sleep when they want to, as a pack of dogs would in the wild. Most of our dogs are young. So the answer, very simple answer to the question, your dog walker would have to run a marathon with your dog in order to give it
the same amount of exercise,
same benefit.
Yeah. And I think there's a psychological component to for the dog to be part of a pack of other dogs.
Absolutely.
Just like we always use the analogy of children playing at recess, they need to interact with one another to learn social skills and hierarchy, manners.
Yes.
So to us, we view it as night and day. But I think for someone looking at it and saying, okay, well, I'm paying $25 for a dog walker, I'd be paying $32 for a full day of daycare. You know, what's the value in the extra spend there?
Right. There's no comparison, literally no comparison. Again, children need to play. It's not a luxury.
Right.
So doggy daycare is not a luxury. It may sound like it is, but in our day and age, when people are working 12 hours a day, just think of children. Universally, we travel all over the world. I can find two-year-old children almost anywhere and give them a ball and a puddle of water. They don't even have to speak the same language because they can't speak language at 2 years old, generally. So they play. So when we bring dogs to a doggy daycare, Houndstown, that's what they do from the minute they walk in the door till the time they leave. They're being dogs, not a dog controlled by a human.
Right.
Dogs are always, this is the plight of a domestic dog. There's never an outlet to be a dog. They're always interacting with humans.
Right.
And again, it's analogous to children, never seeing another child, never playing with another child. So it's actually very toxic to me when I look at it from that point of view. There are, of course, elderly dogs, senior dogs, dogs that haven't been socialized properly, that
Right, and they may not be the best fits for this. There are places for dog walkers in that service, but
completely.
I think if you have a dog that's between the age of 6 months and 6 or 7 years old, and they're energetic and they're generally friendly with other dogs, and you're having behavioral issues with them, like chewing and barking and jumping. That tends to mean that they're not getting their energy out and they're not getting their needs fulfilled. So Houndstown is really meant to be that place, that outlet for dogs.
That's why it's called home to the happiest dogs on earth.
That is interesting.
We're working, never mind 1.5 million. We're approaching 2 million. We got 30 places in 10 states.
Right. We're growing quick, but we have to sign off for this episode.
Okay, that was fun.
Thanks for listening, watching to the Dish on Dogs, and we'll see everybody next time.
I'm so excited.
I know, right?
All right, everybody, the Dish on Dogs. How do people even watch this damn thing? What do you do? I don't know. Like, I want to watch. I got my friends there adjusting.
He doesn't understand
my
what
friends are
podcasts
adjusting their antennas down there in Beverly Hills. John and Tom Sullivan. How are they going to be? Joan and Tom.
We will be available on all the traditional podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, and you can also watch us on Facebook. We'll be posting the video episodes on our Houndstown TV, Houndstown Radio, Houndstown USA. We'll let everybody know. Okay.
All right. Very interesting.
All right.
Jackie.
We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks.